The rich, dark, almost chocolatey scent of earthworms doing their sacred work. The sweet perfume of decomposing clover tilled back into the soil. The gentle, industrious hum of honeybees pollinating my rows of summer squash. And the sight of 1,000 ladybugs, like tiny mobile jewels, diligently patrolling my heirloom tomato plants for aphids. These weren't just fleeting sensory inputs, they were the daily sacred affirmations of my life's purpose. My name is Samuel McGregor, though most folks in Green Valley just call me Sam. Sunstone Acres. My farm wasn't merely a parcel of land or a business venture. It was a living, breathing philosophy, a deeply rooted testament to the conviction that food, real food, could be grown in profound harmony with the intricate web of nature, not in arrogant defiance of it. For 2 decades, I had poured every ounce of my sweat, every penny of my savings, and the entirety of my soul into these 100 acres nestled in the fertile embrace of the valley. I'd taken tired, depleted land, abused by generations of conventional, chemical-heavy farming, and, through patient, organic stewardship, coaxed it back to vibrant, teeming life. My Brandywine tomatoes were the stuff of local legend at the Oak Haven Farmers Market, their flavor a complex symphony of sweetness and acidity that exploded on the tongue. My lacinato kale, its leaves a deep, crinkled forest green, was so nutrient-rich it practically vibrated with vitality. My Chandler strawberries, grown on raised beds mulched with sweet-smelling pine straw, were tiny, ruby-red bursts of summer sunshine, their sweetness a pure, unadulterated joy that no synthetic fertilizer or systemic pesticide could ever hope to replicate. I was a fervent believer in the old ways, augmented by modern ecological understanding, complex cover cropping rotations to build soil organic matter, intricate companion planting schemes to deter pests and attract beneficial insects, the meticulous fostering of a thriving biodiversity that rendered my farm resilient, my soil a living entity, and my produce a powerhouse of flavor and nutrition. It was an unceasing labor of love, often thankless in the face of unpredictable weather or a new invasive pest, a constant battle waged without the quick fixes of chemical arsenals. But the reward was in the feel of that rich, crumbly, living soil beneath my worn leather boots, in the clean water that flowed in my irrigation ditches, and in the wholesome, life-giving food I provided to my cherished community. For the majority of those 20 years, my most formidable adversaries were the caprices of Mother Nature, a late spring frost, a summer drought, the occasional marauding raccoon with a particular fondness for sweet corn, or a family of gophers determined to undermine my carrot patch. Then, about 5 years ago, a new, far more insidious blight arrived in Green Valley. AgriCorp Solutions, and its CEO, Rex Thorne. AgriCorp, a faceless subsidiary of a massive multinational agribusiness conglomerate, purchased the sprawling 1,000-acre parcel that ran along my entire eastern fence line, land that had once been a patchwork of smaller family farms. Thorne himself was the embodiment of everything I stood against, a man whose tailored suits seemed out of place amidst the honest dirt of the valley, whose smile never quite reached his cold, appraising eyes, and whose pronouncements on agriculture were delivered with the unshakable arrogance of someone who believed profit margins were the only true measure of success. AgriCorp's operation was a stark, brutalist contrast to Sunstone Acres. They specialized in a single, heavily patented genetically modified corn variety, engineered for herbicide resistance and unnaturally high yields when drenched in their proprietary blend of synthetic fertilizers. Their fields were vast, sterile monocultures, silent save for the roar of enormous GPS-guided machinery. The air on days when the wind blew from the east carried the acrid chemical tang of their spray rigs, a constant, unwelcome olfactory assault, a miasma that made my eyes water and my heart ache for the land. Rex Thorne made no secret of his contempt for organic farming. At a county agricultural extension meeting shortly after AgriCorp's arrival, he'd cornered me by the lukewarm coffee urn. A smirk played on his lips as he referred to my life's work as a charming, if rather quaint hobby for well-meaning sentimentalists, Mr. McGregor. Not a serious agricultural enterprise for the 21st century. He then proceeded to lecture me, his voice dripping with condescension, about AgriCorp's superior yields, their optimized efficiency, their science-based approach, a science, I noted, that seemed to conveniently ignore the long-term ecological consequences of soil depletion, water contamination, and the destruction of biodiversity. I attempted a polite rebuttal, speaking of soil health as an investment, of the resilience of diverse ecosystems, of the growing consumer demand for clean, wholesome food. He'd listened with an air of bored indulgence, then clapped me on the shoulder. "You stick to your artisanal vegetables, McGregor. We'll handle the serious business of feeding the world." His world, it seemed, was one where food was a commodity, not a sacred trust. Initially, our conflicting philosophies existed in a state of uneasy, unspoken truce. My loyal customer base, a growing community of individuals and families who actively sought out the quality, flavor, and ethical production methods of Sunstone Acres, were not the consumers Thorne was targeting with his anonymous, mass-market corn destined for high-fructose syrup and animal feed. But as the organic movement gained momentum nationwide, as Sunstone Acres began to receive wider recognition, articles in regional food magazines, Best in Valley awards from local publications, and, most significantly, lucrative contracts to supply several high-end farm-to-table restaurants in the nearby city and a chain of upscale organic grocers, I noticed a distinct shift in Thorne's demeanor. His dismissiveness began to curdle, to sour into something that felt uncomfortably like resentment, like a festering professional jealousy. His scientifically optimized yields might have looked impressive on paper, but his soil was visibly degrading, turning pale and lifeless. His monoculture fields were increasingly susceptible to new strains of resistant pests and fungal diseases, forcing him to use ever stronger, more expensive chemical cocktails. My success, built on the very principles he so openly derided, seemed to be a constant, irritating rebuke to his entire worldview. He was a man accustomed to dominating any landscape he entered, and my small, thriving organic oasis was a stubborn, vibrant anomaly he couldn't control or comprehend. The campaign of sabotage began not with a bang, but with a whisper, like the insidious spread of a fungal spore on a damp night. First came the coordinated barrage of negative online reviews, anonymous profiles, suddenly appearing on local food blogs, farmers' market directories, and even my modest Sunstone Acres Facebook page, began posting scathing one-star critiques. They all echoed similar, vaguely worded accusations. Wilted produce, overpriced, unprofessional service, questionable organic practices. The claims were so demonstrably false, so contrary to my 2 decades of meticulous work and my transparent, open farm policies. I welcomed visitors. My certification records were public, that they were initially almost laughable. But the sheer volume, the coordinated timing, was unnerving. And mud, however baseless, has a pernicious tendency to stick, to plant seeds of doubt in the minds of potential customers. Then the attacks escalated from the digital to the physical. One crisp October morning, I arrived at the farm just after dawn to find a significant section of my prized Cherokee purple heirloom tomato vines, heavy with fruit just days from perfect ripeness, inexplicably withered. Their leaves were curled, blackened, and brittle, as if they'd been touched by a sudden, localized chemical frost. There was no sign of the usual culprits: late blight, fusarium wilt, hornworms. It was a targeted, surgical strike. A few weeks later, a similar fate befell a large patch of my Albion strawberries, a particularly sweet, late-season variety that was a market favorite. The plants were shriveled, the almost ripe berries discolored and mushy, a heartbreaking sight. The financial loss was significant, but the emotional toll, the feeling of violation, was far worse. These weren't just crops. They were the culmination of months, sometimes years, of patient nurturing. I reported these incidents to Sheriff Bill Henderson, a decent, overworked man who had known my family for years. He was sympathetic, took detailed notes, but without witnesses or any concrete evidence of foul play, his hands were tied. "It's a strange one, Sam," he'd said, scratching his head, his gaze sweeping over the damaged tomato vines. "Could be some new aggressive blight we haven't seen before. Or, kids these days. Malicious mischief. It's hard to pin down without something more to go on." He promised to increase patrols in the area, but we both knew his resources were stretched thin. I, however, knew with a cold, sickening certainty that settled deep in my bones that this was no random blight, no act of juvenile vandalism. The damage was too precise, too strategically targeted at my most valuable, soon-to-be harvested crops. It felt calculated, designed to inflict maximum economic and psychological damage. And my suspicions kept circling back to one source: Rex Thorne and AgriCorp. The act that finally pushed me from gnawing suspicion and helpless despair into a state of cold, focused rage was the systematic annihilation of my three sisters' demonstration plot. This wasn't a cash crop, but it was, in many ways, the heart of my farm's philosophy. It was a traditional Native American companion planting system, corn providing a trellis for climbing beans, the beans fixing nitrogen in the soil to nourish the corn, and sprawling squash providing a living mulch, suppressing weeds and conserving moisture. It was a perfect, beautiful example of ecological harmony, a living classroom I used to teach visiting school groups about sustainable agriculture. I arrived one pre-dawn morning, the air still carrying the cool, damp scent of the night, to find utter devastation. Every single corn stalk had been hacked down at the base. The intricate trellises of bean vines had been ripped from their supports. The plants themselves trampled and torn. The broad squash leaves were slashed, the developing fruits smashed into a pulpy, unrecognizable mess. It wasn't just vandalism. It was a brutal, methodical execution, an act of pure, unadulterated malice designed to obliterate not just the plants, but the very idea they represented. And there, almost hidden beneath a large, deliberately smashed, blue Hubbard squash, scrawled crudely in the damp earth with a stick, was a single stark, capital letter. The rage that surged through me then was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was a clean, clarifying fire burning away the fog of doubt and despair. The grief for my lost crops, for the violation of my land, was still a heavy stone in my chest. But now it was overlaid with an unshakable, almost righteous resolve. Thorne, or his lackeys, were not just competing with me. They were actively trying to destroy me, to drive Sunstone Acres out of business, to silence the living. Thriving proof that his chemical-drenched, soul-destroying factory farming wasn't the only path, and certainly not the superior one. He had dismissed me as a sentimental hobbyist. He was about to discover the steely determination of a farmer whose very soul was rooted in the land he was defending. I didn't storm over to AgriCorp, though every fiber of my being screamed for confrontation. I didn't even immediately call Sheriff Henderson again. I knew, with a chilling clarity, that I needed more than just a gut feeling and a muddy initial. I needed irrefutable, undeniable proof, the kind that would stand up not just in a court of law, but in the court of public opinion, the court of Green Valley. My granddaughter, Maya, was my first and most crucial ally. She was in her second year of college, studying environmental science with a minor in digital media. A bright, fiercely intelligent young woman who had inherited her grandmother's passion for justice and my own stubborn streak. She often spent her summer breaks helping me at the farmer's market, her quick wit and easy smile charming the customers. When I finally sat her down and, with a heavy heart, recounted the escalating campaign of sabotage, culminating in the brutal destruction of the Three Sisters plot and the taunting initial, her initial shock quickly morphed into a cold, protective fury that mirrored my own. "Gramps," she said. Her usually bright eyes narrowed with a steely determination that reminded me so much of her late grandmother. "This isn't just petty vandalism. This is a calculated attack. And that T, it's a confession. We are going to nail this arrogant creep to the wall. Legally, of course," she added with a wry smile. "Let me do some research on discrete security systems. We need something weatherproof, with excellent night vision, motion activation, and secure cloud storage. Something Thorne's goons won't easily spot." Within a week, Sunstone Acres underwent a subtle but significant technological upgrade. Maya, with her youthful understanding of modern surveillance tech, was a godsend. We installed a series of small, incredibly discreet solar-powered security cameras. They were marvels of miniaturization. One was cleverly concealed within the weathered wood of an old bluebird house, mounted on a fence post overlooking the main access road. Another was disguised as a natural-looking knot in the trunk of the ancient, sprawling oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of the Three Sisters plot. A third was integrated into a decorative, rustic-looking metal sculpture of a heron that I placed near my irrigation pond, giving it a clear view of the vulnerable eastern fence line bordering AgriCorp. Each camera was motion-activated, equipped with high-definition night vision, and programmed to send instant alerts and upload footage to an encrypted cloud server if any movement was detected after dark. Setting them up felt clandestine, almost unseemly for a man of the earth like myself, but the violation of my land had forced my hand. Then, we waited. The waiting was a torment. Every creak of the old farmhouse at night, every rustle of leaves in the wind, every distant bark of a neighbor's dog sent my heart racing, my hand instinctively reaching for my phone to check the camera feeds. I replayed the previous acts of sabotage in my mind, trying to anticipate their next move, their timing. Sleep became a shallow, restless affair, punctuated by anxious awakenings. For 2 agonizing weeks, the cameras recorded nothing but the innocent nocturnal ballet of Green Valley. A family of deer cautiously nibbling at the edge of my new lettuce patch. A far more welcome, if still frustrating, intrusion. A portly raccoon meticulously investigating the contents of my compost heap. The silent, ghostly swoop of a barn owl hunting voles in the moonlight. I began to second-guess myself. Was I being paranoid? Had the saboteur, perhaps spooked by my previous reports to the sheriff, decided to lay low? Had the tea been a red herring, a malicious prank by local kids after all? Then, on a moonless, overcast night, the kind where the darkness feels absolute, pressing in from all sides, just after 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone, lying on the nightstand beside me, buzzed with a sharp, insistent vibration. A motion alert. Camera 3. The old oak tree. The Three Sisters plot. My heart leaped into my throat, pounding like a trapped bird. I fumbled for my glasses, my hands slick with a sudden sweat. I pulled up the live feed on my phone. The screen's glow unnaturally bright in the darkened bedroom. The infrared image was grainy, washed in shades of gray and white, but the scene it depicted was chillingly clear. 2 figures, dressed head to toe in dark, nondescript clothing, their faces obscured by hoods and what looked like simple cloth masks, were moving with a stealthy, practiced efficiency through the newly replanted rows of young corn. They each carried a backpack sprayer, the kind used for applying pesticides or herbicides. I didn't breathe. I didn't dare. I watched, a helpless, furious observer, as they began to systematically douse the tender, vulnerable corn shoots with a liquid from their canisters. It was happening again. The same targeted, malicious destruction. But this time, I wasn't just a victim. I was a witness. My first instinct was to race out there, to confront them, to scream my rage. But Maya's calm, strategic voice echoed in my mind. Gramps, if we catch them, the most important thing is the evidence. Don't engage. Call the sheriff. Keep the recording going. With trembling fingers, I hit the record button on the app, ensuring the footage was being saved directly to the secure cloud, not just my phone's local storage. Then my voice, a low, urgent whisper. I dialed Sheriff Henderson. Bill, it's Sam McGregor. They're back. They're on my land right now, spraying my crops. Camera 3, the oak tree by the east field. I have them on live video. To his immense credit, Henderson didn't question, didn't hesitate. Understood, Sam. Stay inside. Lock your doors. Do not confront them. My deputies and I are en route. Keep that video feed open if you can. We'll try to approach quietly from the west. The next 20 minutes stretched into an eternity. I sat propped up in bed, my phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip, watching the 2 shadowy figures continue their methodical work of destruction, moving from the corn to the newly trellised bean plants. I could almost hear the faint, insidious hiss of their sprayers, even through the phone's tiny speaker, a sound that now represented pure, calculated evil. The feeling of helplessness was almost unbearable, but the knowledge that every second of their crime was being recorded, that help was on its way, kept me rooted. Then, in the far distance, almost imperceptible at first, I heard it. The faint, mournful wail of a siren, quickly cut off, Then another, closer. Henderson was being smart, approaching without lights and sirens until the last possible moment. The figures on my screen suddenly froze. They looked up, their heads swiveling, clearly having heard something. There was a brief, frantic, gestured exchange. Then, they dropped their sprayers and turned to flee, crashing clumsily back through the cornstalks, heading directly towards the eastern fence line, towards the dark, looming expanse of AgriCorp property. But their escape route was about to be cut off. Just as they reached the edge of my field, the night was shattered by the sudden glare of headlights, the roar of engines. Sheriff Henderson's patrol car, followed closely by a deputy's, screeched to a halt, their powerful beams pinning the two figures like startled rabbits. I watched, my heart pounding a triumphant rhythm against my ribs, as Henderson and his deputy flashlights, cutting sharp arcs through the darkness, moved in. The two saboteurs, realizing they were trapped, threw their hands up in surrender. As they were being cuffed and led towards the patrol cars, one of them stumbled, his hood and mask slipping for a crucial moment. Even in the grainy night vision of my phone screen, amplified by the harsh glare of the police flashlights, the face was starkly, unmistakably recognizable. Kevin Baxter, Rex Thorne's longtime foreman. A burly, thuggish man known throughout the valley for his unquestioning loyalty to his boss and his often aggressive demeanor. The second figure, younger, less identifiable in that fleeting moment, was later confirmed to be a recently hired seasonal worker from AgriCorp. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. The high-definition video footage was crystal clear, capturing every moment of their trespass and malicious destruction. The backpacks they had dropped contained canisters of a highly potent, non-selective herbicide, a chemical cocktail strictly prohibited for use anywhere near certified organic land, a poison that would not only kill my young crops, but would also deeply contaminate my meticulously nurtured organic soil, potentially for years, if not properly and expensively remediated. Their muddy footprints led in a direct line from the AgriCorp fence to my damaged fields and back towards their point of capture. Baxter, under the bright lights of the interrogation room at the sheriff's office, and faced with the undeniable video evidence, apparently crumbled quickly. According to Sheriff Henderson, he initially tried to bluster, then attempted to claim they were spraying for invasive weeds along the fence line and accidentally drifted. A ludicrous assertion given the targeted nature of the damage deep within my plot. Finally, he implicated Rex Thorne directly, stating with a sullen resentment that he was just following Mr. Thorne's orders to deal with the McGregor problem and teach that organic crackpot a lesson he wouldn't forget. The arrest of Rex Thorne himself, early the following morning, was an event that sent shockwaves through Green Valley and beyond. The sight of the arrogant, impeccably dressed CEO of AgriCorp Solutions being led from his sprawling ranch-style home in handcuffs, his face a mask of disbelief and impotent fury, was captured by a local news crew Maya had astutely tipped off. It made the front page of the Green Valley Ledger and was quickly picked up by regional agricultural publications and even some national news outlets. The narrative was compelling. The powerful corporate titan brought down by the quiet determination of a small organic farmer and some cleverly placed birdhouse cameras. But my fight, I knew, wasn't merely about bringing Rex Thorne to justice for his criminal acts. It was about reclaiming the narrative, about transforming this vicious act of sabotage into a powerful platform to champion the very principles of organic, sustainable agriculture that he had so arrogantly tried to extinguish. This was an opportunity to educate, to inspire, to show our community and the wider world that there was a better, healthier, more ethical way to grow food. Again, Maya was my indispensable partner. We didn't just hand the raw video footage to the authorities and the press. We crafted a story. With her digital media skills, we edited a short, impactful video. It began not with the grainy night vision footage of the saboteurs, but with sun-drenched images of Sunstone Acres in its full glory, the vibrant fields, the buzzing bees, happy families picking strawberries. Me talking with passion about my commitment to organic principles. Then, it transitioned to the heartbreaking images of the destroyed tomato vines, the decimated Three Sisters plot, my voiceover calmly explaining the economic and emotional impact. Only then did we introduce the chilling footage of Baxter and his accomplice caught in the act, their faces briefly, clearly visible. We interspersed this with easily understandable graphics explaining the dangers of the specific herbicide they had used, its potential impact on soil health, water quality, and human well-being. My narration throughout was not angry or vengeful, but firm, factual, and filled with a quiet, unwavering conviction in the rightness of my cause. We posted this video on Sunstone Acres' previously modest social media pages, on the Green Valley Community Forum, and Maya used her network to share it with influential food bloggers, environmental journalists, and organic farming advocacy groups across the country. The response was a digital tidal wave, an outpouring of support and outrage that far exceeded our wildest expectations. The story of the small, principled organic farmer being systematically targeted by his ruthless, polluting corporate neighbor, and then cleverly turning the tables through his own tech-savvy investigation, resonated deeply with a public increasingly concerned about food integrity, corporate power, and environmental stewardship. The hashtags Sunstone Strong, Organic Integrity, and Justice for Sam McGregor began trending, first locally, then regionally, then, to my astonishment, nationally. My stall at the Oakhaven Farmers Market the following Saturday was an extraordinary scene. It was mobbed, but not just by my regular loyal customers. People I'd never seen before, people who had driven from neighboring towns, even from the city an hour away, crowded around, their arms laden with reusable shopping bags. They came not only to buy my produce, what little I had managed to salvage from the unaffected sections of the farm, supplemented by some emergency purchases from fellow organic growers who generously offered their support, but more importantly, to shake my hand, to offer words of encouragement and solidarity, to express their profound disgust at Thorne's actions and their admiration for my resilience. Restaurants that had previously been non-committal or had sourced from cheaper conventional suppliers called, wanting to establish regular orders from Sunstone Acres, citing their customers' sudden, vocal demand for McGregor's organic produce. Organic grocery chains from several states reached out, offering significant, long-term contracts. The sabotage incident, in a strange, almost perverse twist of fate, became the most effective marketing campaign Sunstone Acres could have ever imagined. It starkly, dramatically, and publicly highlighted the fundamental difference between my farming philosophy and Rex Thorne's. This was no longer just a local dispute about farming methods. It had become a potent symbol in a much larger conversation about the future of food, about ethics versus profit, about sustainability versus exploitation, about the kind of world we wanted to live in, the kind of food we wanted to feed our families. The legal proceedings against Rex Thorne and AgriCorp were protracted and complex, as such cases often are. Thorne, backed by AgriCorp's formidable legal team, fought tooth and nail, employing every delay tactic, every procedural loophole, every character assassination attempt imaginable. They tried to discredit the video evidence, claiming it was doctored or taken out of context. They attempted to paint Baxter as a disgruntled rogue employee acting alone. They even had the audacity to countersue me for defamation and economic interference, a suit so baseless it was summarily dismissed by a clearly unimpressed judge. But the video evidence was irrefutable. Baxter's confession under oath was damning, and the weight of public opinion was overwhelmingly against them. In the end, justice, though slow, was served. Rex Thorne was found guilty of conspiracy to commit property damage, illegal use of prohibited pesticides, and several other related charges. He received a significant fine and a period of house arrest, avoiding jail time to my initial disappointment, due to a plea bargain that also implicated higher-ups in AgriCorp's regional management for pressuring him to deal with the organic competition. AgriCorp as a corporation was hit with crippling fines, far exceeding the value of my destroyed crops. They were subjected to stringent, court-mandated environmental monitoring, forced to pay for the extensive and costly remediation of my contaminated soil, and faced a slew of further investigations from state and federal environmental agencies, spurred by the revelations in my case, which uncovered a longer, more disturbing pattern of their careless and often illegal environmental practices across the region. Thorne's reputation in Green Valley, and within the broader agricultural industry, was irrevocably shattered. AgriCorp's local operations were significantly downsized, their brand a toxic liability. Sunstone Acres, in stark contrast, not only survived but thrived beyond my wildest dreams. The outpouring of community and customer support translated into a sustained and substantial increase in business. I was able to expand my operations responsibly, to hire several wonderful young people from the community who were passionate about organic farming, to invest in new, innovative sustainable agriculture initiatives, a solar-powered irrigation system, a larger composting facility, an educational program for local schools and aspiring young farmers. Maya, my brilliant granddaughter, became an integral part of the farm's future, her passion for environmental science now deeply intertwined with her love for Sunstone Acres. She even started a successful line of value-added products, artisanal jams, pickles, and sauces made from our organic produce, further diversifying and strengthening our farm's economic base. The scars on my land, and the deeper ones on my heart, took time to heal. The sections of my fields that had been poisoned required years of intensive, patient remediation, cover cropping, biochar application, the introduction of beneficial microbes before they could be certified organic again. The memory of the betrayal, the sheer malice of the violation, still brought a pang of righteous anger, a shadow of the old hurt. But when I walk my fields now, when I see the vibrant, healthy rows of diverse organic vegetables stretching towards the horizon, when I hear the happy, industrious hum of bees in my clover fields, when I watch families laughing as they pick their own pumpkins in our autumn patch, I feel a profound sense of peace, of hard-won vindication. Rex Thorne, in his hubris and his greed, had attempted to destroy me, to silence the quiet truth that Sunstone Acres represented. But in doing so, he had inadvertently amplified my voice, illuminated my principles, and revealed the deep, abiding strength of a community that valued integrity, sustainability, and food grown with respect for the earth. He had tried to poison my fields, but he had only succeeded in fertilizing a movement, a renewed appreciation for the authentic, the wholesome, the locally grown. The advanced security cameras, once a reluctant necessity born of fear and vulnerability, now stand as a quiet, almost ironic testament to the fact that truth, like a meticulously tended organic crop, will always, eventually, find its way to the light, especially when it is nurtured by the unwavering support of a community that believes in its enduring power. And that, I have come to understand with a clarity that fills my old farmer's heart, is the richest, most sustainable, and most satisfying harvest of all.